Good evening. Welcome to Sir Eb's Tutorials. I would like to thank everybody for following my Facebook page, and I do hope that this endeavor in would help you in one way or another, especially in your preparation, not only as a student but in your preparation as future criminology, especially that the criminologist licensure examination is now be taking place by August 2024. So I do hope that these tutorials might have contributed even less in that preparation. So thank you for following my Facebook page, and I would like you to please continue follow because I will be having more discussion tutorials. And if you have something to uh, wanted me to discuss with, please do message me so that I would prepare for such topic of discussion. Okay, so tonight we will discuss about drug education. So I had prepared important terms and terminologies that we need to understand fully because usually this usually came out in the board examination. So these terminologies and part of the drug education subject is very important for us to deeply understand those terms related to drug education. So let's start first on defining the concept of drug abuse, drug addiction, and as well with drug dependence. So these are very important. Uh, these are very important topics, or rather terms we have to understand. Now, what would be the difference, or what would be the meaning of drug abuse, drug addiction, and drug dependence? So let's make this very easy and simple to remember. Now, when you talk about drug abuse, simply uh, it's a wrongful way or improper way. These are two terms you have to remember: wrongful and improper use of a particular drug. Because remember this one that drugs basically, uh, once it is being improperly used or once it is being wrongfully used, it has a negative effects to the person using it. So definitely, uh, even though that particular drugs are being prescribed or it's being given to us by a physician, but once we wrongfully use that matter, improperly use that particular drug, then definitely that kind of usage is termed as drug abuse. Remember, uh, once a person who improperly, once a person who wrongfully use a certain particular drug, then definitely it's a drug abuse. Traditionally, the old definition of a drug abuse is that it is the use of a dangerous drugs. There's a traditional definition that when a person used those dangerous or prohibited drugs, that was termed before as drug abuse. But presently, anything, any particular use of a drug that is being done wrongfully or it is being done improperly, that is being termed at present as drug abuse. So whether it's a prohibited or a regulated drugs, but when a person improperly using it or wrongfully using that particular drug, that is termed as drug abuse. Now, when a person are now abusing a particular drug, okay, so it's now on the state of abuse of a particular drug. And when that person, because of his continuous use of a particular drug for whatever means, he is being continuously, he has that desire to continuously use of a particular drug, then that persons are now on the state of addiction. So it must start first by abusing drugs. And once the person are now abusing drugs and he keep on continuously, he has those desire to keep on using, continuously using a particular drug, and he is always have that desire, overpowering desire of a need to use a particular drug, then the person is now suffering from addiction. So he's now have that desire continuously using a particular drug. Okay, that is what we call a drug addiction. And now, for drug dependence, normally, so stages po ito. So from being abusive of a drug, and then secondly, that person has that desire to continuously, repeatedly, has that overpowering desire to use that particular drug. And when the persons are addicted, he is now developing a state of both physical and mental aspect of the person are now dependent on a particular drugs. So he is being, he is suffering already. He is developing a state, both mind and body are now already into reliance, or is now already dependent of a particular drug. So when the persons are now dependent, when the persons are now reliant to a particular drug, both mind and body, then the person is now on the state of dependence. So abuse, wrongful use, then secondly, addiction because of that repeated continuous use of a drugs. And thirdly, when the person had already experienced, develop a what we call bodily and mental state of relying or being dependent of a particular drug, then the person is now on the state of drug dependence. So abuse, addiction, and drug dependence. Next term is we have to differentiate the concept of habituation and tolerance. Now, drug habituation and drug tolerance is a part of the uh, characteristic of a drug addiction. Okay, these are two are characteristics of drug addiction. So, what would be the difference between habituation and tolerance? Simply, when you talk about drug habituation, so the person habit are continuously using a drug. That's why in drug addiction, the person are repeatedly, continuously using a drug. That the repeated use and the continuous of use of drug is being termed as drug habituation. But how about tolerance? Tolerance is the tendency to increase the dose, because when the persons are repeatedly using or continuously using a particular drug, it might be in the long run, the effects of that drug taken might be lesser, or it might not be enough for the person. So the tendency, he will be increasing the dose. He will increase the amount of dose of drug to be taken. So that was what we call drug tolerance. So habituation is the repeated use, and tolerance is about increasing the amount of drugs or the dosage of drugs, especially when the persons are now getting addicted to a particular drug. So that's the difference between habituation and tolerance. Next one is the concept of clandestine laboratory and drug den. Okay. Now, we have to remember that these are all facility. Okay. Clandestine laboratory and drug den are simply place or a facility. So, when the question is pertaining to a place or facility, definitely you have to remember about clandestine laboratory and drug debt. But what would be the difference of this particular place? Since both place to or is a facility, so what is in there of that particular place or in that particular facility? Simply, for drug clandestine laboratory, this is the place or the facility where drugs is being manufactured. Simply, ito yung lugar kung saan ginagawa yung particular drug. So, a place where a drug is being produced or being manufactured. Okay? But how about drug den? Drug den is still a place. However, what takes place on a drug den? Drug den is where the drugs is being delivered, being stored, and sold to a particular person for purposes of using it particular drug. So those places where the drugs that are being produced or manufactured is being delivered into, where it is being stored, and then it was being sold to a person for purposes of using that particular drug, then that place is considered a drug den. So place where the drug is being produced or manufactured, that's at the clandestine laboratory. Second, the place where the drug is being delivered, sold to a person, then and then they use that particular drug on that place, that is what we call a drug den. So that's the difference between clandestine laboratory and drug den. Both are place or a facility. Okay. Next one is the concept of drug pusher, protector, financer. Okay, these are very important terms. Now, basically, when you talk about a drug pusher, these are the person who sells, who deliver that a particular drug. So the person who sell, who trades, who deliver a particular drug to one person to another, the person is called term as a pusher or drug pusher. How about cuddler and protector? Basically, a from the word protector or cuddler protector, basically these are person who has that influence, who has that position, who has that influence of protecting, okay, of influencing for or consenting the performance of a illegal drug operation. So there is what we call a person has that influence, has that power on that purpose, on consenting, or rather what we call allowing a particular illegal drug operation to pursue. Okay. Lastly, about financer. What is financer? Normally, from the word financer, is the person who supplies the money, who produce a money for the operation. Okay, so he has that financial resources, who pays or raises or supplies money for purposes of running illegal drug operation. So these three are persons. Okay, simply pusher a person who sells the drug. Simply protector a person who protects, who conceals, who consented, who influences for the operation of an illegal drug operation. And financer is the person itself who produces, has that resources or supplies a money for purposes of running a illegal drug operation. Okay, that's pusher, protector, and financer. Now let's proceed to the term selling, delivering, sensya na po, and dispensing. Okay, these are very important terminologies we also need to understand. Okay, what's the difference between selling, okay, and dispensing? Simply, selling, dispensing, and delivering, these are all an act of giving a drug. Okay, we are giving a particular drug. So an act of giving a drug is could be selling, delivering, and dispensing. But what would be the difference? Take note of this. Selling is you give a drug, but remember that the giving of drug, there is a consideration in return, most especially money. So you give a drug, and there is a consideration, monetary consideration of in return. So that is what we call selling. Okay, you give the drug, and in return, the person also give you a financial or monetary consideration, money. So the act of that person is what we call selling. Okay, but when the act of giving away of drugs, you just simply give the drug without a or any consideration. You are just simply delivering a drug. Okay, so that is what we call delivering. So you only give a drug to a person, but in return there is no, or it might be no consideration. Okay, so that is what we call delivering. Selling, you give the drug, and in return there is a monetary consideration. For delivering, you give the drug, and there would be or without any consideration in return. For dispensing, simply, this is the you are also giving a drug to a person, especially without a prescription, because there are drugs that needs uh prescription from a physician. So when without that prescription, you still give the drug to a person, so definitely you're dispensing. So in such a way, some pharmacies will also give a person a drug, particular drug, even though that particular drug needs and requires prescription from a physician. So even without that prescription, you still give that person a particular drug. So these three are about giving a drug, okay? But there are different ends. So selling, you give the drug without, there is a consideration, monetary consideration in return. But for delivering, you just give the drug without a consideration. For dispensing, you give a drug without the prescription of a medical officer. Okay? So you have to remember, those are very simple things to remember. How about instrument, paraphernalias, and laboratory equipments? These are all equipments. These are all materials that are in relation to drugs on that matter. But what will be the difference between instruments, paraphernalias, and laboratory equipments? Now, instrument basically is anything, any material or thing that is used in the illegal drug trafficking. So, when you talk about instrument, is any material or thing na ginagamit in the commission of an illegal drug trafficking. So, it might be the vessel that was used, di ba, in transporting a particular drug. Those are instrument that is used. Those are a material that was used in the illegal drug trade or illegal drug trafficking. So, that is what we call an instrument. However, how about for paraphernalias? Paraphernalias are still materials. However, those things or materials, when you talk about paraphernalias, is the thing or the material used by the person when he is using a particular drug. So, ang tawag, no, drug paraphernalias, meaning the thing that he uh, used on the time that he is administering or is the person is using a particular drug. So yung mga lighters, so yung mga tube on that matter, those are paraphernalias because those are materials that was being used during the administration or during the time the person is using a particular drug. So that's paraphernalia on the usage of a particular drug. So a laboratory equipment is still, these are materials, these are equipments. Normally, these are materials or equipment that is being used during the manufacture, during the time na ginagawa or pinuproduce yung dangerous drugs. So yung mga gamit sa laboratory so na ginagawa o ginagamit in producing or manufacturing a particular drug. So, 'di ba? So instrument, paraphernalias, and laboratory equipments are all simply a thing or a material that was used. But the only difference is what would be the usage of this particular materials or thing. So in instrument, ginagamit in the operation of an illegal drug trafficking. For paraphernalias, ginagamit at the time the person is administering or using a particular drug. For laboratory equipment, these are equipment that is being used in the time that a drug is being manufactured or being produced in the clandestine laboratory. Okay? Remember that matter. Now, Dangerous Drug Board and PDEA. So these are very important agencies, okay, that is in relation to the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of the Philippines. Okay, for Dangerous Drug Board, normally these are the policy making body. Okay, so these are the policy making body in the operation in the campaign of drug prevention and control. So remember, policy and strategic formulating body in the drug prevention and control programs of the government. Now, Dangerous Drug Board was created, remember, it was created uh, on Republic Act 6425. Okay? So, DDB was created by RA 6425, the Dangerous Drug Act, the first dangerous drug of the Philippines. That's RA 6425, the policy making body of the Philippines with regards to the drug prevention control programs. For PDEA, PDEA is the implementing arm of the Dangerous Drug Board, the enforcement arm, the implementing arm of the Dangerous Drug Board. So whatever programs, policy, strategies formulated by the Dangerous Drug Board, then the PDEA will be the implementing arm. PDEA will become an enforcement arm in all of the provisions as provided by law. However, CPDEA was created by Republic Act 9165, the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002. DDB was RA 6425. For PDEA, it was created by Republic Act 9165. So, okay? So that's the word of given by law to Dangerous Drug Board, PDEA. Dangerous Drug Board or policy making, where PDEA implementing arm, enforcement arm of the Dangerous Drug Board, specifically implementing the provisions of our Republic Act 9165 or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002. Okay, so that might just end our discussion for tonight. So, if you have something to ask, a topic for me to discuss, please message me. Please, personally message me, and it would be glad. It would be my an honor to discuss this topic that might, in one way or another, help us, those in the criminology profession. Thank you, and good evening to each and everyone.